So on my last video of the gun stock style doors, I alluded to the fact that I don't really like kiln dried timber because I think it's a failed concept, if you like. And somebody commented on the video, mentioned that, so I just thought I'd make a video about it and just give you my thoughts on it. I'd much prefer if things just went back to the old style of things where everything was air dried. Obviously air drying wasn't perfect and there was some issues with that here and there, like often you'd get timber that wasn't dry. You'd get a pack of timber and there'd be pieces within that pack that weren't as dry as others. So it wasn't a perfect situation either. But the problem that I experience anyway, and I'm on the east coast of Australia, so this might only be relevant to people like me that are on the east coast of Australia. People in America, you may or may not have this problem there. But in Australia, we have a moisture or a humidity content here that ranges between 12 to 15% where I live along the east coast of Australia. And a lot of imported timbers that come here are dried to American conditions, which is like 5 to 6%. So it's far too dry for here, so as soon as the timber hits the air here, it wants to swell, and we have quite a bit of trouble with timber moving around. And if you went back, I'll put the footage in this video of what I was talking about from the gun stock style doors, but you can see when I'm cutting down the style on the saw, the style of the door starts to ride up, so it starts to actually bow out of shape. And that's the fresh timber hitting the air for the first time and sucking in a bit of air, whatever goes on there, and it just literally just goes out of shape. So I have a lot of trouble here with kiln dried timbers. But I just to start with, I just thought I'd show you this as an example. This is a piece of what started out its life as a piece of 10x2 Western red cedar. Now that piece of timber has been kiln dried. You can see on this edge here, it's down to about 1.5 inches, maybe even less than that, and it's from point to point here we're under 9 inches now. So this piece of timber has had massive cell collapse during its drying process. It's been dried too quick and too dry, and consequently the cell structure has just collapsed on it and it's completely ruined that piece of timber. So I have a couple of these in our office that we just keep in there as a talking point, just to, so that you can see what can actually happen. Haven't seen too much of that sort of thing happen, but it does happen now and again. But my primary issue with kiln dried is just the simple fact that it's too dry and they dry it too quickly. Now, it's, say like I buy my timber all in sawn, so 6x2s is sawn material, so I want to machine that up. If I want to deep cut that timber so that I want to get 2 3/4 inch boards out of the 1 2-inch board, more often than not, as I'm ripping the timber, it'll do this, or it'll move all over the place. It is highly unstable. In its form that it was dried in, it's usually not too bad. But if you want to manipulate it or resize it or do anything with it after that, that's where the problems occur, and that's where I'm having my problems, and that's what I don't like about it. It's highly unstable as soon as you want to deep cut it, or if you want to rip it down. If I want to make sashes here and I want to take a 6-inch board and I want to get 2 3/4 inch sash styles out of that one board, I need to dress those up into that size prior to moulding them and cutting them in some of the timbers that I work with, because if I don't, then as soon as I rip it, I'll lose the shape of that piece of timber and it will become no good. So I'm dealing with a lot of bow, and I'm dealing with twist, a lot of tension and things like that. Now, the problems that I have with it here is it was always marketed as a superior timber, a superior way to dry the timber, but I completely and totally disagree with that. I think the whole purpose was just to pump the timber through quicker so that the merchants can get their hands on their money and not have an investment sitting in their yard for so long, because air dried timber would take 12, 18 months to dry. So kiln dried, they whack it through the kilns in weeks to months. So they're literally getting their hands on their money a lot sooner. And that's what it's all about. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the product. Now, the other problem that we have here is being too dry. As I said, it comes in here and it'll be 5 to 6%. So to acclimatise to our climate here, it's got to suck in double the amount of moisture, sometimes triple the amount of moisture to what it has. As I said, ours is 12 to 15. So we have a lot of swelling issues. So for argument's sake, if I was using American white oak and I'm making kitchen cupboard doors or something like that, a door say this wide and it's got a solid panel in it, I have to allow quite a significant amount of clearance in that, because if I don't, that panel's going to swell so much and it's going to blow the rails off the stiles. And we've seen that happen time and time again. So some of the other things that I'm talking about here is, we'll zoom in on this piece in a sec. This is a bit of American white oak, and this piece of timber, originally it was a bit of 6x2 or a bit of 8x2, something like that. But this piece of timber was totally ruined by the kiln drying process. This has had massive cell, not collapse, but what we've got in this is along the board here, which wasn't present when it was 50 mil thick. This wasn't present. These only became available when I dressed it up. But these are massive splits, like 1.25 inches deep into the timber, all the way along the board. Now, if I turn this sideways, I'm not sure whether the camera can pick this up, but this is what it looks like in the timber. So you can see from the face here right down to here, these splits are in this timber, and that's all the way along the board, all the way, all through the face, purely done through kiln drying. This wouldn't have happened if this piece of timber was air dried. Now, don't get me wrong here, kiln dried timber is basically all there is these days. It's been done everywhere, and for the most parts it's pretty good, it's okay. But certain timbers especially, I don't really think Fijian mahogany, which is a timber that I'm working a lot with at the moment, I don't really think that is successful as a kiln dried timber. I don't think Douglas fir / Oregon is a successfully kiln dried timber. It gets too brittle and it smashes to pieces when you try and machine it. So it's not good. Western red cedar was very stable in its air dried capacity, but as soon as we went to kiln dried, it became very unstable. When you tried to deep cut it, it would twist and bow and warp and carry on all over the place. The boards had a lot of tension in them, and it was just nowhere near as good. Now, I'm not saying that none of it was any good. I'm just saying that that happened far too often. So if you're buying a large quantity of timber, there's X amount of percentage of the timber in that pack that you're going to have a lot of trouble with, and it's just not how it used to be. Air dried, it wasn't like that. Now, I could go on and on and on about it. I see a lot of issues here with it, but as I said, it might just be simply where I'm at, my location. I'd be very interested in hearing from anybody in England, given you've got a very wet climate, how does it go in your climate, and what percentages is it dried out for you guys? What's the timber coming in from, say, America? What's it coming to you like? Is it reconditioned when you get it, or are you trying to work with a timber that's just far too dry for your climate? And then again, I'd also like to hear from you guys in America as well. How are you finding it? Because your climate is a lot drier than ours. How do you find it? Do you have any issues with it? What's the stability like? Do you have any of this sort of, or have you seen any catastrophic cell collapse like this? I'd be very interested to hear from you if you could drop a note in the comments. All right, well, I'll stop it there because I'm just going to keep repeating myself over and over, but thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.